was, if you're a Virgin Islander, you need to be part of that prosperity. And one of my teachers, in particular, Mark Moros, my senior composition teacher, when I was in school, said that, I need to come back home. I need to come back home because there was just a boom. There was this huge boom taking place. And then one of my clients was building the Stouffer's Resort over at Diamond Couture over there. And they were my clients, Morris and Knudsen. They were my clients in New York. And so I already had the built-in relationship. And so it was natural for me to then, sort of make that re-entry, if you will, into the community, because I had that relationship with Morris and Knudsen from Boise, Idaho, that was going to build the Stouffer Resort project. And then, of course, Hugo took place. And you are correct. You are correct. Even though I was not living here, I did visit here. I lived here before, and like you said, the vibrancy of the place is very different. That has changed. The point of resiliency in terms of the infrastructure, yes, the reason why less properties got damaged because of the building code. Now, that speaks to the issue of the sort of reducing the extent of the damage or the destruction. But in terms of, is it going to stimulate the economy, or how is it going to stimulate the economy? That's the question we're asking. So we know that, yes, we created a more resilient infrastructure. Okay, that's why people are saying the debate is, well, Hugo was worse than Irma and Maria, because that's because the regulation, the building codes all changed, and so it made it more resilient. But that's not what we're talking. We're talking about economically. The place was different then and what it is now, and so the consensus or the feeling is that the place never really did recover or recapture that vibrancy that you referred to. So
I would agree with that. I think that fixing the infrastructure or hardening the infrastructure lays groundwork for economic recovery, but it ultimately comes down to, who do you have in the community who's buying and who's selling? And I'm talking about products and services, because that's what drives an economy. And if we have seen people leave, then we automatically have a smaller economy. If we have people who have been financially impacted detrimentally to such an extent that they really do not have any disposable income, and even buying necessities is a problem, then we're not going to have economic growth. So economic growth ultimately turns on, how do we get more people involved in the economy? How do we bring more buying capacity, into the economy itself? And if we can't do that solely on the basis of trading with each other, Virgin Islanders working with Virgin Islanders, then we have to find ways to create business opportunities that will allow companies in the U.S. Virgin Islands to serve a global market. Customers can be outside of the Virgin Islands, but monies can flow into the Virgin Islands for products and services that are being provided.
You know what's interesting?
Virgin Islands companies.
You know what's interesting, David? I looked at a foreign model. The Philippines and Filipinos or Filipinas, 10% of their GDP is reliant on OFWs. OFWs are overseas foreign workers. These are Filipinos where they thrive on educating Filipinos and Filipinas, where they go off and they become teachers and they become medical professional nurses and doctors. Why? Because they create a system where they deploy this human capital throughout the world, and what happens is now these same Filipinos and Filipinas now become an important economic pipeline of income flowing back into the Philippines. So much so, remittances accounts for 10% of the total GDP for the Philippines.
That's amazing.
Because they took a deliberate position to create an education system to educate their people, to deploy them throughout the world, because The world need teachers, and the world need doctors and nurses. And what do? They come back, and they don't come back. They send money back, and it's an important foundation to the Philippines economy.
But I think for us, and good morning everybody, Albert.
Good afternoon, right?
Oh yeah, good afternoon. I'm always on the radio in the morning, so it feels like morning. But to your point, David, in terms of building and in terms of talent for you, Tony, two things that I've been really, really thinking about. And when we look at the diversity of the Virgin Islands, it has been that Filipino pipeline going the other directions for other economies for decades. For the Eastern Caribbean, for the Indian community, for the continental United States, we've had money coming out of this community and going to other places. When you look at our big box stores, that's what they are: Kmart, Home Depot, Walgreens. These stores are Kinney's, Bata. You go ahead. These stores are constantly taking money out of the economy. One of the great attributes that Virgin Islands has is, I think, it's one of the most diverse set of 100,000 people in the world. And so now that we have a lot of these places that that were taking money out of here before, Santo Domingo, Haiti, our new ones, are now become markets that we can exploit because we have windows, pathways into those markets. And I think that's one way we rebuild our economy. Because, when you look at the Virgin Islands, there's only two way things comes in right now that we exploit: the sea and the air. You can't get here by land. But we have this internet, and we have this huge, massive pipeline into the global e-commerce marketplace that we're not exploiting at all. And if we just put a little pressure on it, it definitely will yield results. And I think we need to look at when we talk about our trade deficit in e-commerce, how much money goes out of the Virgin Islands on the internet versus how much comes in, and need to switch that a little bit. And that's one way we can get money into the economy. The other thing that I think for the Virgin Islands is it reminds me of the Dust Bowl in the Great Depression. We are the farmers that constantly go to the fields and reap without putting anything in. And I think it's time that we start to do the things that will reinvest in our infrastructure that will make us stronger. And number one part of that is people. If we don't have people that can perform in an economy, earn wages, contribute taxes, buy homes, buy cars, send the kids to school, we can't compete. And then the top part of that is bringing companies that actually provides living wages for those people to make it and be able to provide government services and stuff. The one thing this hurricane did that no one is paying attention to, and I have an editorial today talking about the women in our community on our VI consortium, is that it has made our community overall poorer. The 38% of our kids that live beneath the poverty line, they have gotten poorer since the storm. And they will continue to get poor because those are going to be the jobs that are hardest hit. After this initial cleanup is done, the hotel people, the people who are doing the service jobs and light skilled, those are going to be the people who are going to be hardest faced because they're not as resilient. They don't have the disposable income. They don't have the money to reinvest inside of education or extra training. And they're definitely on the low pay scale, low part of the pay wages. So for us now, I think what we have to do is we have to look at what is this place beyond the storm, and what is our economy is going to look like. When we had the Great Recession in 2007, I remember going to seminars in the States, and everybody was redesigning their economy, and they were asking like, what is the Virgin Islands going to do? I said, well, we're going to come back and we're going to do tourism. At the time we had oil, distillation. Those are going to be the mainstays of our economy. Well, all of those things are very shaky now. So we have not done our homework and said, okay, what is the next big thing for the Virgin Islands? From my point of view, it's service jobs. Those jobs are in accounting and architecture. They're in anything that you can do from a long distance and make money. Tourism will always be a mainstay, but unless we develop talent and move people from one economic sector into the next, we'll continue to be faced with the not being able to pay back tax returns, having this huge earned income credit that we do every year, not being able to get enough money to pave our roads and supply our hospital, not having people have health insurance. And that drag on our economy moving forward is always going to debilitate us. Because you think 30% of Virgin Islanders can't afford to buy food in the Virgin Islands and have to have federal assistance. That's SNAP. 30%. So right there alone is telling you that we have to make that 30% productive in order to move this economy forward.
You know, I've heard the fact that we always tend to make reference to what are the bedrocks of our economy. Tourism, you hear tourism all the time, and of course, when the oil refinery was operational, we had the oil refinery, and so I think it's safe to say that our tourism product is what St. Thomas offers in terms of the the couple of million passengers that come off of the boats, the ships, and dock in St. Thomas, and then you have about 500,000 overnight visitors, staying in the territory. The numbers are quite drastically different when it comes to St. Croix in terms of its defined tourism product. So you had two forces. One was that light industrial. We had the refinery. St. Thomas had the tourism product. Now, the question wasn't how do you grow or build or expand your economy based on those two things, because if I was to ask David or yourself, how has our tourism product changed between today and what it was, I don't know, 25 years ago? What is so different about our tourism product today than it was a quarter century ago?
It's not.
It hasn't. That's my point. David, what has changed in terms of our tourism product between today and what it was a quarter century ago?
Well, in the case of St. Croix, we have fewer hotel rooms.
Right.
We talk about this all the time.
Right.
So the ability for people to come and stay is diminished. We've not replaced or added hotel space. We've tried to tackle adding additional cruise service, and that's been marginally successful in the case of St. Croix. So if you want to come to St. Croix, you really have to want to come to St. Croix if you're coming, because it's off the beaten path. And I think that's a difference from a quarter of a century ago.
But
in the case of St. Thomas, cruise traffic has just gone up. Hotels are either stable or there have been more rooms built during that period of time, and so they've been the primary beneficiary of tourism, related economic growth.
But you and I was just talking about how the product in terms of entertainment had changed. But if you talk about infrastructure, it has changed quite a bit, because we put in Crown Bay in St. Thomas, right? We expanded the boardwalk in St. Croix downtown. We redid the St. Croix airport. We redid the entire Frederiksted port as well too. We rerouted and redid the traffic at Havenside. We developed the Red Hook facilities and the facilities leading to Cruise Bay in St. John. We did that piece out there as well. We stuck in and moved the cargo away from Cruise Bay, and we built Enid Pond facility as well. So we've invested money in tourism infrastructure, and we have that huge waterfront apron project. We've added Yacht Haven as with the yachting ports there. What's it called? YHG, Yacht Haven, Yachting Worldwide, or whatever they're called. But we have added a lot of tourism infrastructure. The two problems I think exist. The tourism demand has changed. I mean, because you've been to St. Thomas 100 times, you don't want to go there. So people want to go to new and different types of places. They want to see more attractions. In terms of attraction, the tramway was always there, but they've added the zip lining, and we're about to add zip lining in St. Croix as well for our tourism market. But the world today is about marketing. And then when you look at the facilities, I think that the disadvantage that we have to emerging tourism markets in the Caribbean is we've been doing this for at least 60, 70 years now. So our tourism infrastructure is old and speaks to the tourists 20 years ago, whereas they're building for modern facilities now that have jetways, like in St. Martin. They're able to have cruise ships and ports and stuff that are much more. I mean, for God's sake, in Havenside, the warehouses are the first thing on the dock that you see, not the store. The warehouses for the downtown jewelry stores that have been there for like 50 years. So we need to remodel that. And the other thing that we've not done is, one of my things is the government needs to get out of the businesses that they don't know crap about. We built a facility in Crown Bay, St. Thomas. The Port Authority does an okay job of managing the facility. It keeps it up, it makes it looks good, it collects the rent, but they're not in the mall business, and essentially that's what it is. And they're really not in the port business, they're in port collections business. We need to have partnerships with other stakeholders whose prime business is turning that profit for that market, that market segment that they're targeting. So, Mall International know a hell of a lot more about placing stores and getting the kind of input we need than the Port Authority does. So we have been shy, real gun shy, about getting into long-term public-private partnerships with people who are profit-driven. So what happens, we suffer from the malaise of government bureaucracy and also from government complacency, because no matter what, you're going to get your check every 2 weeks. And those are problems that we really have to face. I would much rather be involved, if I had a shoe company, I'd much rather be involved with Michael Jordan than with the government of the Virgin Islands. And I think you would agree with me. If I had a rum company, I would much rather be involved with Diageo, a worldwide company, than the government of the Virgin Islands. So we need to find worldwide experts, partners that could come to the Virgin Islands, give us the leverage of their worldwide and global marketplace, and bring people and investment and money and jobs to the Virgin Islands. And meantime, they're always looking to stay in touch with who their clientele is and what their expectation is once they come.
So I hear two things when I asked about the actual tourism product for the Virgin Islands. You said yes, the investments have been made for the infrastructure,
right?
But I think we collectively said our tourism product hasn't changed, right?
No.
So how do you correlate between making the necessary investment for